Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter and Vero at Movies TV Mad. And welcome to this very Christmas Eve edition of the DCEU Daily. This time next week, we'll be doing our year review of the DCEU Daily, talking about all the big news from the DCEU that's hit. The two films we've had, which one is the best DCEU movie? Is it Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut? Is it the Suicide Squad? I think you all know where we're going to go with it, and we'll also be looking to the future. But today, we're talking about two things. A little bit later on, we'll be talking about the Batman and reading an article from Screen Rant. But first, I'm asking the question on this Christmas Eve. Season's greetings. Happy Christmas Eve to you all, by the way. We'll be asking, can there be redemption for the DC Extended Universe in 2022? I think there can be. The more and more news we hear about Black Adam, the Batman, the Flash, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, the more excited I get. But of course, everyone isn't excited. Everyone has different views. And that's the best thing about fandom. I love that. Right now, there's a lot of angry Snyderverse fans going around with the fake propaganda that Barry Allen running through as the Flash in Man of Steel and many other DCEU movies, probably all of them, is going to change the Snyderverse. I've told you I don't believe that's happening, but if you want to go with that narrative, that's up to you. If you're looking for negativity today, this is the wrong video and the wrong channel for you. So, can there be redemption for the DCEU in 2022? You're probably shouting, Mick, the DCEU doesn't need redemption, but it does, because it's not a good franchise. Oh, there's many, many films I love in the franchise, but as a franchise, it simply doesn't work. And we all know that, if we're honest with ourselves. Can there be redemption? Of course there can, because next year's movies and HBO Max shows are huge, really huge. And each project has a level of potential. Whether you want to see that potential or not, it's up to you. Now, I do believe there can be redemption, but there's still a lot of question marks over the DCEU. Because when you look at the franchise, it's not even a franchise. It's not. If you think about the films, it's not even a franchise. It doesn't have a connective tissue anymore. It's a funny little franchise, isn't it, everyone? We started off with Snyder. We got the Snyder Cut this year. There's a trilogy there. There's connective tissue in the first Suicide Squad. Kind of connective tissue in Wonder Woman. And then we got to Justice League, which I never count in the DC Extended Universe. When I talk about the DC Extended Universe, and I talk about Justice League, there's only one Justice League, and that's Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut. Facts. It doesn't matter what you like and what you hate within the DC Extended Universe. The truth of the matter is it simply isn't a very good franchise. It's not. You know, some people like to compare the DC Extended Universe with the MCU. I have compared it in the past. But you know, at the moment, you can't really do that. The MCU is the most successful thing in entertainment for a reason. It's an interconnected franchise. It makes sense. Kevin Feige runs it all. We've had Zack Snyder, we've had Jeff Johns, we've now got Walter Hamada and Ann Sarnoff. Different hands have touched this unique franchise. And it is a unique franchise because, as I say, most of the films are pretty good. They're probably better than a lot of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. Shazam's better than Ant-Man and Ant-Man 2 put together. I expect Shazam Fury of the Gods, already with Wonder Woman tapped to be in that movie, but even without her, I think Shazam Fury of the Gods is going to be much better than the Ant-Man sequel we saw last year or the year before. There's a lot of good things about the DC Extended Universe. There is. But as a franchise, it doesn't work. And that's the very reason it needs redemption. And next year is a huge possibility of getting that redemption, because when you've got someone like Matt Reeves, now he may not be directly involved in the DC Extended Universe, but he's part of that world, just on another Earth, right? That's why I'm including it. You've got something like Black Adam, an untried character in live action, with one of the biggest stars in the world, The Rock, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and you can tell they're really throwing everything at that movie. That's exciting. And then there's this weird little movie called The Flash, which has got some people really, really triggered. And it is triggering if you love Snyder's movies and you want him back, because they are rebooting everything. They're using the Flash's ability to time travel to reboot the franchise. In fact, Andy Muschietti admitted that's the very reason the Flash got this movie in the first place, or one of the reasons. So they're using the Flash to do this. I personally don't think the reboot is a kind of reboot that tears down anything. And I explained why yesterday, and I don't want to go over old ground. Directors don't destroy other directors' work. Well, there has been one in the history of the DCEU who has done that, and that's Joss Whedon. I don't think that Andy Muschietti is one of those directors. I've looked into him, and I just don't think he's a destroyer. Very few directors disrespect previous filmmakers' work, even if they're reworking somebody else's films, aka Ron Howard and Solo. It was a very respectful take. It didn't put down the previous guy's take. He never spoke about it. So I don't think that Andy Muschietti is tearing down the Snyderverse. As I said earlier, if that's what you want to do, if that's what you want to think, that's up to you. How can we redeem this franchise? By indeed making it a franchise. Because as I say, it's not a good franchise. It's not a franchise. It's just a bunch of films in the same universe. That's all it is. The best film thus far, one of the best films, is not even in the DCEU from modern DC live action. It's Joker. Aquaman's the most successful. Fact. It's insane that an Aquaman movie made more than a Wonder Woman movie, or a Superman movie, or a film with Batman and Superman within it. That tells you something. The inconsistency of this franchise. So does it need redeeming? Oh, like fuck, it needs redeeming, and it needs redeeming badly. I've said before, there wouldn't even be a DCEU if it was up to me. After Justice League, I would have torn everything down, put Snyder to bed, put Whedon to bed, put everything to bed, and started again. I would have brought in someone I trusted to run the franchise. Not someone necessarily with the mentality of Feige, but someone equipped to run this thing as a showrunner, for sure. So I would have torn down the franchise. I don't think it was worth persevering with. But we're going to find out next year if this is a good idea. I don't think this is the way to save a franchise or redeem a franchise. But it's interesting, even though I would have torn it down. When I think about the announcements and plans for next year, it is kind of exciting, isn't it? I think if you're an all-round DC fan, I'm not talking about Snyder stans, but I think if you're a DC all-round fan, this kind of excites you. Why? Because you're hearing about things like Blue Beetle and Batgirl, very interesting projects, exciting projects. Even if you're not happy about Michael Keaton being involved, and I think if you're an all-round DC Comics fan, you will be happy about Keaton being involved. Forget his age. He's fitter than most of you put together. Finito. And Ben Affleck doesn't want to do anymore. Of course, Ben Affleck could also be in the Batgirl movie. No one said he's not in it. We've just been told Keaton's in it. They may be leaving Ben Affleck as a surprise, unless he's indeed deleted in the Flash movie. Affleck will only be deleted in the Flash movie if that's what Ben Affleck wanted. That's the power he has at Warner Brothers. Make no mistake. If Ben Affleck wants to do more, then they won't delete him in the Flash movie. You can accuse of Warner Brothers of a lot. But just the fact that Ben's in the Flash movie tells you something. That he had the right to rewrite his part in the movie tells you something. So if he wants to continue, he'll continue. And if he doesn't, he won't. It's as simple as that. And nothing you spread out there can change these facts. We've heard what the geezer said. So Why are you saying it's WB's fault? I suppose you can blame them for driving him off the Batman movie he was going to write and direct and star in. That's true. You can go back to those histrionics. I agree with you there. But we can't go back in time. Every movie they did had bad reviews and bad reactions. They were scared. They're a business. They're not a charity. They want to make money. So the DC Extended Universe is a great franchise, but it's a franchise of movies, individual movies, not a franchise with interconnectivity. It's true, the first part of it does have interconnectivity with the Snyderverse. It certainly does. And then it was pulled down because the reactions to what Snyder was doing wasn't great. The reactions from elements of the audience and most of the general media didn't like what he was doing either. So they drove him off, rightly or wrongly. And we are where we are now. So next year is this really huge year because the titles, the movies themselves, are very exciting. We've heard that there's at least one cameo in Black Adam. That Black Adam gets abducted by Amelia Harcourt and Waller's team at the end of Black Adam. Interconnectivity. We have heard, as I mentioned earlier, that Wonder Woman will be in Shazam! Fury of the Gods the following year. And then the Flash movie is going to have so many DC characters in it. So that's awesome. We don't know about Aquaman, but it's looking like it's going to be a more connective universe. This is a way to redeem the franchise. Some of you don't want that. You see, it's up to every individual person to do next year what they want to do. You can boycott it. You don't have to boycott it. If you decide to boycott it, you're not wrong. And if you decide not to boycott it like me, you're not wrong. I can still fight for the restoration of the Snyderverse without boycotting something that I love. I want to see those movies. I'm sorry. I do. I make no excuses. I'm not trying to justify it, make it acceptable. I can sit on the fence. I can love both. I can fight for the restoration of the Snyderverse, but stand these movies. But some of you just won't accept the fact that destroying the existing DC Extended Universe still won't get you the restoration of the Snyderverse. Each movie next year can redeem this franchise, including the Batman, which is going to be a huge shift in tone for Batman, even more darker than we've ever seen before. Interesting. In Black Adam, something we've never seen in live action, well, we have in TV shows, but not in movies, and that's the JSA, the Justice Society of America. Very exciting. Then we go to the Flash movie. Huge, biggest DCEU movie. If that movie succeeds, then the new era of the DCEU can go. If it doesn't, we know what happens. So it's actually such an intriguing movie to cover. And I'm really going to cover the shit out of it next year. And Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. We really don't know much about that movie, but it's very intriguing to me what they're going to do. A script co-written by Jason Momoa himself. So, again, intriguing. So I'm excited for all of that. And I think it does have the potential to redeem the actual franchise. Whether it will or not, we'll have to wait till next year to find out. Right. The Batman movie's Batmobile was inspired by Stephen King's Christine. Wow. The Batman's Batmobile will be a horror figure unto itself, says director Matt Reeves, who looked into Stephen King's novel Christine as inspiration, by Julia Selinger. Interesting. I think when we see shots of the car moving towards a villain, for example, we won't focus on Batman driving it. We'll just see to the villain. It will be look like the car's fucking driving itself, and it's coming for them. So we've heard about the horror vibe of this movie in reactions in test screenings. So we've never had a Batman horror movie before. So interesting. Set for release in March 2022, Matt Reeves' film will reboot the Batman franchise with all new talent, including Paul Dano as the Riddler, Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman, and Colin Farrell as Penguin, Jeffrey Wright, John Turturro, Andy Serkis and Peter Sarsgaard. Also Also the Batman follows the Gotham vigilante in his second year of crime fighting despite his novice superhero status. The Batman shows Bruce Wayne already adopting iconic Batman accessories, including the Batsuit and the Batmobile. Though the Batman will feature well-known imagery from the franchise, Reeves brings new sources of inspiration to the gadget canon. Per Bloody Disgusting, his version of the Batmobile was inspired by Stephen King's automotive horror novel, Christine. Like King, Reeves hopes to imbue his Batmobile with an intimidating, animalistic appearance. Read Reeves' full quote below. It has to make an appearance out of the shadows to intimidate, so I thought of it almost like Stephen King's Christine. I like the idea of the car itself as a horror figure, making an animalistic appearance to really scare the hell out of the people Batman's pursuing, just like I just explained basically. I like that idea. It's very, very interesting and not been done before. I mean, it's not like the Batmobile hasn't been used to intimidate villains before, but I think he's going to be going about this in a very different way. Published in 1983, Christine tells the story of dweeby teen Arnie Cunningham. Unbeknownst to him, his beloved 1958 Plymouth Fury named Christine has been possessed by sinister supernatural forces, and she brings an aura of evil into Arnie's life. John Carpenter directed an adaptation of the book the same year of its publication, and it has since become a cult classic. Reeves' horrific Batmobile is just one way he's establishing his unique take on the long-running franchise. Early trailers and posters suggest that the Batman will have an ominous noir tone, and Pattinson's young, aggressive Batman also promises to be a departure from Batman's past iterations. Reeves admitted that his iteration of the character was in part inspired by Kurt Cobain, a similarly reclusive figure he described as vulnerable yet powerful. Now with Reeves' imagining of the Batmobile as a horror figure, fans can continue to cobble together the director's moody vision of his entry into the Batman franchise. The Batman is set to hit theatres on March the 4th, 2022, and I can't wait. Hopefully COVID isn't as bad then, so I can actually go and see this film. Anyway, so it does look like we are going with the horror vibe. How scary will this film be? Well, you've got to use your common sense here, because everyone's losing their shit a little bit here. It's literally a PG-13 movie, right? It isn't R-rated, which some people were hoping for, because they want that audience, they want that central audience, and quite right too. So it won't be scary, but it could be hiding behind the sofa time now and again. So very intrigued with where he's going with this. He has said that basically he wants to shake the fuck out of Batman. He wants to shake him to his core. So this is a film that no one can predict. No one really knows what it's going to be about unless you've seen the test screenings. Of course, I expect this film to hit big with audiences. It's the next anticipated movie after Spider-Man No Way Home. And I say, bring on the biggest year in DC live action history. 2022 is huge, and it's win or bust for the DC Extended Universe. What do you think will happen? Win or bust? Comment down below and let me know. This has been the DCEU Daily. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss this perfection. And I'll see you again tomorrow with even more DCEU Daily. Until then, au revoir, goodbye, auf Wiedersehen. See you later.